If your child is struggling with things like daily meltdowns, uh, aversions to certain textures, or the refusal to wear certain types of clothes because of the way they feel on their skin, or even trouble handling transitions to changes in the typical daily schedule, then your life as a parent, it can get very overwhelming, very frustrating, and it can be very overwhelming for the kiddo too. So in this video, we're going to talk about what the root cause of those things, or what we would call sensory processing disorder, is. And if you're a parent, you've spent probably hours and hours searching for why your kid is having the challenges that they are having. And I want you to know that you're not alone. And as we get into this topic and as you watch this video, if all of this information sounds like your kid and it makes sense to you, I invite you to come to our upcoming ADHD, sensory processing, anxiety workshop, or what I call the Perfect Storm workshop, on Tuesday, April 30th at Havana Coffee. Click on the link within this text and get registered for this free event, because we're going to dive deep into the cause of these sensory processing disorder challenges. So, with sensory processing disorder or any type of neurological disorder, it all involves the central nervous system. All right. And with the central nervous system, we have two different modes that the central nervous system can be in. Very simply, we have fight or flight, or stress mode, or the nerdy term would be sympathetic mode. And we have rest and digest, or parasympathetic mode for the nerds out there. And the nervous system can't be in both modes at the same time. The nervous system is either in fight or flight, or you're in rest and digest. If the nervous system is in fight or flight, that is a great thing. That is a God-given, a blessing of a mode to be in if you're fighting or flighting. But if you're not fighting or flighting, or if you're not in a stressful scenario, you want the parasympathetic rest and digest, that side, the calming, relaxing side of the nervous system, to be engaged. Well, the stresses of life, they cause our nervous system to be shifted towards one side versus the other more frequently than it should be. You want to have a good balance between fight or flight and rest and digest. If you don't, then that is the key to any sensory neurological disorder. And when we talk about stress, fight or flight, that type of side of the nervous system, we think of stress as adults. The word stress means to most people stress at work, stress at home, financial stress, relationship stress, whatever. And that is a type of stress. But there are other types of stress in life that we don't often think about. For adults, some examples. So in general, there's three types of stress. We have physical stress. That would be, for adults, posture, range of motion, repetitive movements, sitting at a desk, driving all day, lifting heavy weights, that type of physical stress. We also have emotional stress. That's what I just mentioned earlier. Stress at work, stress at home, financial stress, all of those things that create stress within our emotional side of things. And then there's chemical stress, toxic stress. So that's anything our body takes in that's not organic. That could be detergents, that could be perfumes, that could be the chlorine in tap water, that could be deodorants, it could be pesticides in foods and preservatives in foods, a number of different things. Now, all of those things make a lot of sense when you're speaking to or about adults. For kids, we don't often think of kids as experiencing stress, but that's what I want to talk about here today. That is, number one, what stress looks like for kids is prenatal or maternal stress. So any stress that mom is going through during pregnancy, baby is experiencing that stress at a neurological, physiological level as well. And oftentimes we hear from parents that during their pregnancy, when they bring a child to our office, they were experiencing some form of stress. The second thing is one of the most overlooked things, and that is a physical type of stress on the baby or kid, and that is the birth process. So just a normal vaginal delivery is upwards of 40 pounds of pulling and tugging on the baby's head and neck, physical stress. When you talk about birth intervention or birth injury, so a C-section delivery or forceps delivery or vacuum extraction delivery, that amplifies, almost even doubles the amount of physical pulling and twisting and stretching on the baby's upper cervical, upper neck part of their body. And that ties into the central nervous system as well. The second thing would be toxic stress that kids go through. So oftentimes when kids go through a stressful pregnancy and a stressful birth, we would hear in a history that they have they're sick all the time, they're fussy, they're colicky. Maybe this is early exposure to medications like antibiotics or reflux meds or steroids. All of those things are, whether they're needed or not, like I said, thank goodness we have medications available for kids and adults. But oftentimes, if kids are needing medication, it's a sign that their body is not functioning like it should. And the last type of stress that's more of a newer one here in the last couple decades is electronic stress. So EMFs, household toxins, mold exposure, all these different things are physical, chemical, and emotional stressors that kids go through. And when they go through these stressors, it causes their central nervous system, going all the way back to the first part of this video, to, instead of being balanced, and having a good distribution of fight or flight and rest and digest, all of those stressors that I just mentioned shift the nervous system into fight or flight, into spending more time in fight or flight stress mode than it is rest, relax, calm mode. Now, when your nervous system gets shifted to fight or flight more than it should be, that causes our central nervous system, our sensory system, to be on high alert. So for a kid that is sensory sensitive, okay, with, say, sensory processing disorder, for example, their nervous system feels things that their brain should just be filtering out. They feel that tag on the back of their skin. That texture when they bite into a certain type of food, it is their sensory system in their mouth. They feel that more than they should. They hear, a kid tapping their pencil in class when normally their brain would just filter that noise out. They become very sensitive to changes in schedule because their brain is seeking comfort. They're seeking that same pattern, and when it gets thrown off, that triggers a sensory outburst, a meltdown. All of those things are key when you talk about sensory processing disorder. And when you boil it down to the root cause, it is simply a nervous system that is shifted towards sensory dominance, fight or flight, stress dominance, more than it should be. And the brain and the nervous system gets hardwired to be on high alert. That is sensory processing disorder at its true roots. So as neurologically focused chiropractors, our objective is not to treat sensory processing disorder. That is not our goal. Our goal is to, number one, measure how the nervous system is functioning. And number two, figure out what we can do chiropractically to balance and get the nervous system from spending more time in fight or flight to be more balanced and spend more time with a good distribution of rest and digest. That is where the nervous system and that sensory system gets calmed down. And when that happens, you then get the outcome of less meltdowns, less sensory outbursts, less aversion to foods, being able to handle transitions better, being able to have less sensory sensitive clothing and situations like that. So those are how we approach all of those scenarios. So as a chiropractor, as I said earlier, I invite you to come to our workshop at Havana Coffee Shop on Tuesday, April 30th, and learn more about this topic. This is a free event. I can't wait to meet you there. Make sure you click on the link and register, and we'll see you then.